actually handle this. I honestly kind of severely doubt it, but we're going to try it anyways. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're supposedly live now. Wanted to come in here and make sure. Let me see what the deal is as far as me being able to get into the chat without having my screen up. Oh no, please don't start playing stuff while I'm doing stuff. Why are you so terrible, Twitch interface? And we're just gonna come into here. There we go. Ryan, hello from the past to the future, because you said you're going to stop by to catch the recap rather than come in here now because you can't, because fair enough. If I knew you better, I would call you a bum, but I don't, so I won't. Yeah. God, Twitch your face, why do you suck? It's so terrible. Alright, Ryan, I assume Dunphy is you, which, cool. Hi, what's up? Let's see what we can do about getting the chat up. This dashboard config by Twitch is kind of terrible. I don't care about raids. I just want to chat. Where's my chat? Chat, there you are. God. What a pain in the butt. Okay. Cool. Alright. I think we're sorted. So, when you're going to go snap styrene after you've scored it, put the X-Acto knife down, because I had a nice gash here on my knuckle. Just remember that. Just to explain the Band-Aid. Alright, so what I'm doing today, what I have been doing, I guess, is actually going through some bits that I got. I ordered a bunch of Firestorm Armada models off of someone on Facebook Marketplace, and they finally showed up today. And so what I've been doing is going through and putting bits in my now not so meager collection of bits. And these are resin miniatures that come with parts that, you know, you assemble with like CA glue or whatever, but I haven't assembled any yet because I want to cast them. So I keep these as masters if I ever need to remake a mold. So I spent today... Oh no, please don't tell me one of them leaked. Not terribly, I don't think. Okay. So I spent today making molds for the bits. There are bits in the mold right now. I've got 2 sets here. Okay, so mold making 101. Plenty of resources out there to get into it, but let me actually get the silicone that I use. There we go. I use this stuff, Smooth-On's Moldstar 20T. It's a 2-part silicone that you mix together in equal proportion. Mix it together in a cup and you dump it over the stuff. These are dump molds or 1-part molds, which means that, and I'll show you these when I open them up, but basically I kind of put the object that I want to cast face down on a surface, in this case foam core, and then I either out of more foam core I will build up a box around it, kind of like this, but with foam core, and I'll hot glue all of the seams and pour the silicone in. Now what I've done with these is I used a foam core base, but these are actually large square cookie cutters that I use to act as walls, and I've got some clay that I just use to seal the bottom. It's really handy to do this because all your molds come out as regular sizes, and it's just a nice convenient way without having to, because when you do the foam core ones you have to rip the thing apart. You can't use that as a case anymore, so it just saves on material, which is nice. So I'm going to demold these and hopefully it'll work. Okay, so a little bit of silicone flashing. I was expecting that. That's good-ish. So what I did different was not only are these objects just sitting here, but I've actually got them resting on top of some a styrene sheet, like a small styrene riser. That's the word, riser. So I'm gonna very gently rip off these. Let me get a fresh X-Acto knife out because that'll be handy. Unfortunately, the area of the workshop that you can't, or the desk that you can't see here, is not the most organized, so it's always fun. Get a fresh blade. Just one, thank you. No, just one. Just one. Oh god, I'm gonna get stabbed. Just put that down. Oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Total vote of confidence here. Alright, so we're just gonna slide this into here. Guess it needs to get loosened up. There we go. Okay, and whoop. Now I'm gonna just... Oh, it's nice and sharp. That won't last long. So what I'm doing is just getting rid of some of the flashing by cutting the silicone around the perimeter of the box. Just a handy way to do that. And while this is still in the box, I'm going to just very gingerly cut around the styrene risers. This is to... Because inevitably, whenever you do a dump mold, some silicone kind of ends up underneath whatever object you put. In fact, if I lift this up, you might actually be able to... I might be able to show you. Yeah, see, very thin bit of silicone here. So that's just kind of fairly normal. It's because there's no such thing as a perfect seal. And that's actually part of the reason why I use these risers, is because I can cut into the silicone around the risers without messing with the integrity of what I'm going to be casting this in. So now just the very tedious job of cutting this. Now if I were smart, I would have used a mold release before I dump this in. But I'm not that smart. I also need to get better about holding my blade vertically as I'm cutting. That's, I have a tendency to let my blade, you know, lean to the side. Need to get better about that. Which I guess if I, you know, had better posture, that would be far easier, but I don't. Not sure if I cut that side. I'm just going to cut it again just in case. Okay. Now, another thing that I did different is usually to hold the object to the foam core, I would use CA glue, but I really didn't want to have, you know, the bits of paper from the foam core, so I used double-sided tape. Jury's out whether or not that was a good idea. So, I mean, screw it, let's just see what happens. I'm going to pop this out of the jacket. It always takes a little bit of persuading. This cookie cutter, by the way, has the advantage of being slightly sloped, so I can push it out from underneath instead of having to fight against it. And so yeah, here's my mold, and again, I'll clean up these edges in a bit. Let's just try popping these out. Now, what I'm getting is the styrene bases, which kind of figured that would happen. Oh, I did not cut around that. That's okay. I can get that now. Oh, I'm sure I missed one too. I'm going to see on the recap. It's like, Rob, what are you doing? You missed all the things. Oh, perfect. Okay, this one came right out. Okay, so I've got some creep underneath there. So I'll have to clean that up. I don't know if that's a technical term, but I like it. So I'm going to try and... It's actually probably better if they don't pop right out, so I can see where I need to clean up the flashing from, where it gets between the styrene and the object. And it's probably better that way. So what I've got here is, I'm not sure if anyone can actually see that on the stream, but I've got basically, here's the object, and the styrene kind of sat underneath it, all well and good, but I've got a little bit of silicone creepage underneath that. So what I'm going to go in very delicately with X-Acto, try and cut that out. This is why it's really good to have a really sharp blade when you do this. Perfect. Come on. Also really handy to get underneath the flashing. that didn't work quite as well as I hoped. This is why God made tweezers. There we go. Much better. I've got a little bit of flashing here, so I'll just get that out of the way. And I'm not even sure if you can see this with my big fat head in the way, or if this is even in shot. But my laptop sucks, so I don't even want to have the stream up whilst I'm streaming, because my laptop can't handle that. And I am not in a position to be able to take my desktop down. So, y'all are just gonna have to cope. Now this is all by dint of not being able to have a completely airtight seal between the object and the styrene, so if anyone has any better ideas on how to make sure I can get that airtight seal there, I'm all ears, because that is one of those things where I've never been able to quite get. So I always need to do some mold cleaning afterwards, like always, inevitably. I'll come in here with a straight one. Yeah, that'll do. Okay. And digging out these masters is actually not too unlike getting the pieces out of a grapefruit. It's kind of what it feels like. Now with this one, I gotta be careful. Because I don't have the object still in there to act as a guide. So I gotta kind of fake it. This is the real reason why I got a really sharp X-Acto blade today. Like they always say, every creator I know always says, make sure you have a really sharp blade. And yes, it's always good to have a really sharp blade, but you know what? Operational reality says you get a sharp blade for the first 5 minutes that you use it. So like, if you were to use a sharp, fresh blade for everything that everyone ever recommends having a new fresh blade, you'd be switching out your blades every 5 minutes, and you'd only be able to do the thing like, you know, spend all your time switching blades, and that's no way to be productive. So I always kind of take it as a grain of salt when someone says, make sure it's a fresh blade. It's like, yeah, is it fresh enough? Yeah, probably. But when it comes to actually like cleaning up a silicon mold, legit, switch out for a fresh blade. There's not really another way to clean it up with sanding like you would if you were cutting EVA foam. Alright, so that's one piece out. I've got this mostly cleaned out, or at least good enough. Oh, found another piece that's irking me. So I'm going to pop these pieces out. Another one. Oh no, that's not even a thing. Okay, I thought, yeah, no, damn. I missed a piece of silicone. It's okay. Sometimes you can get in here, because what happened was I'd cut it, but didn't cut it all the way through, so sometimes for flashing that's this thin, you can kind of rip it where it needs to be ripped, because the knife blades kind of acted as perforations. So sometimes you can get lucky. Alright, now I'm going to learn from my mistake there and make sure that this piece of silicone comes off. We'll get this guy under there. Just a little guy there. Cool. Why, hello, buttery salmon. Salmon? Salmon? You are from one of the Discords. I am a member of many of them, so you'll have to be a little more clear on that than the Discord. Are you from the Krabok one? Are you from the Tabletop Engineers one? Are you from the Armada one? All of which are perfectly valid. Just looking for, common context here. All right, I've got some molds. One mold done. Let's get on to the other one. This one's going to be potentially worse, potentially better. Hard to tell. I mean, don't look at me. I'm a pessimist. I'm going to get these out of the way. So let's get this unpeeled. And come on. Okay. I learned from the first one, it's always good to keep the styrene in there so you can clean that up. Now, unfortunately, oh yeah, okay. I couldn't remember which one it was. You're from the Armada Discord. Well, welcome, hello, all such things. Clay. I'm gonna use the clay. And my phone buzzed, so let me check that. Okay. My roommate has a smart TV, and for some reason I'm getting notifications whenever she starts streaming something. So yeah, just cleaning off this flashing, because it's easier to do it while you have the straight edge of the mold case, or the mold jacket. I guess it's not technically a jacket. A jacket kind of implies that it's a two-part nested mold, like a mother mold or a jacket. I don't know what the technical term is. So, alright, once again, I'm going to slice around the styrene risers so I can try and lift up this silicone. I'm not cutting very deep. I'm trying to actually keep it pretty much to the same height as the styrene is deep, and we're talking like 0.06 styrene. So for styrene, fairly thick, but in the context of a block mold, not that thick. Alright, so hopefully this should just peel right off all around. Oh, missed a bit. Can fix that. There we go. And I guess technically this isn't all that necessary because this is part of the kind of overflow. That's what I'm calling it, at least. So the reason why I put the objects, I'm going to kind of take one of these and show you. Let's use the right one. So this is the object that I was casting, and so what I did is I cut a piece of styrene, double-sided taped it to the styrene, and then poured it around here. So the silicone will actually flow over the object and over the styrene. So what you get here is a bit of a lip, basically. I'm not even sure if you guys can see that on stream, but it helps kind of contain and properly deal with resin as you're flowing down into it, as you're pouring it, I guess the term would be. I don't know. This is the first time I've tried doing it, but to me it made a lot of sense to give that a try. I probably will do it slightly differently next time around. Instead of using double stick tape, I think I would try, or rather, instead of using a small piece of double stick tape, I think I would coat the entire piece of styrene in that double stick tape and then cut off the excess. And that's just for uniform kind of thickness. But I don't know, maybe I'm getting too particular. I mean, I don't know. I have a tendency to overthink things when it comes to this, over-engineer, and not accept a good enough when it comes to stuff like that. But in some ways, I'm actually really bad at being, like, precise. It's very, very juxtaposed. You know, for these smaller ones, it might actually be easier if I clean up these edges after I pop out the styrene instead of before. This one I want to be careful because I can see. Oh, that's what that is. So I can actually see through the silicone a piece of the double-sided tape. So that one's going to be a bit of a pain. I can already tell. Same with this one, I can see the double-sided tape underneath it. Yeah, let's do that. So what I'm casting are actually pieces from a set of miniatures I had gotten on Facebook Marketplace. They're for an not old, but defunct, out of print for now, game called Firestorm Armada. And when I got my first set of miniatures for this game, I was like, yes, these are really cool. And then about halfway through painting them, I was like, I wish I had some spare parts, but again, out of print, so they were kind of difficult to get little pieces off of, and to get an extra set. So on Facebook Marketplace, I saw someone selling a set that I wanted, and I wasn't going to make the same mistake again, so I bought the set, the lot that he had. And before I start assembling them with all these pieces, I'm making molds of them so I can cast spare parts with urethane, with resin. Alright, I think that's good enough. So, I don't actually have any good examples of some of the parts that I have here yet. Let me pop this out and pop these pieces out, and I'll show you. So here's one. This is a really good one, actually. This, hopefully my camera will focus on that again. I can't actually see my screen. This is a piece from one of them, and this will make a wonderful bridge piece for some scratch built models that I'm working on. So I can
pour this and get spares instead of just having the one. This is... Oh, yes, it worked. Okay, this is an engine cowling. Again, really useful one. This one I actually stuck down with sticky tack, so... because it's got a recess in it, but I don't need all that. And yeah, there's some creep under, so I'm going to have to come in with an X-Acto blade there. Same here, actually. That's alright. That's okay. This is the big one, though. This is the one I'm excited about. Yes! Cool. Let me clean this one up and I'll pop this one out, because, again, this is the money one. That is to say, this is the one that I really wanted. Cool. Actually, good to know. Flush cutters? Really good at cleaning up sharp edges on silicone molds. You think of flush cutters, you're like, yeah, things for getting stuff out of sprues. But it turns out really handy for cleaning up edges of silicone molds. I'll play with that in a minute. Come on. Here we go. I'm not a patient person. Which arguably means I am in the wrong hobby. There we go. But at the end of the day, I suppose that if this hobby teaches one anything, forcibly, it is patience. The quality of work that you get is directly proportionate to how much patience you are willing to exercise. Not even necessarily the amount of patience you require to do that, but the amount of patience that you're willing to put into it, because sometimes when you are patient, you end up in a situation where you don't actually need to be patient. But the fact that you are willing to be patient makes a difference. Whereas if you weren't willing to be patient, that opportunity to not need to be patient never comes up. And perhaps I'm just getting way too philosophical and crap. Alright, I got the edge of that one cleaned up enough. Let's pop it. Oh yeah, I think that worked well. So yeah, this is the money piece. This is the piece that I'm excited to cast. This is this will make a really good big greeble for a lot of things. So yeah, really excited for that one. I've got little doohickeys here. Cool, that one came right out. And no real need to clean up. I mean, a little bit on the proper edge here, but not too shabby. distort that too much. Next. This is another one, pretty much exactly the same. Just a little bit of a tag there. Again, good enough. Let's get this boyo out. Ooh. I saw that silicone skin. Let's see if we can snag that out there. Again, good enough. Ooh, yeah, let's snag that. I think this is an engine assembly. Can't tell if this is the tall one or the short one. I think it's the tall one. Hey, it's the tall one. Oh, that came right out. Turns out, I didn't need mold release. Probably still should have used it, but I didn't need it. This one. I think this one shifted on me while I was pouring the silicone. I'm not too... I know I'm not going to be overly thrilled with this one. You know what? Maybe it'll surprise me. I will give it an opportunity to surprise me. The other reason why I'm a big fan of doing the styrene risers is because I can get in there and really, like, go to town on cleaning up an edge without risk damaging any detail that exists on the edge of a thing. So... yeah. Let me just trim that back a little bit. That's good enough. Alright. That's a good one. Oh, that's nice and clean. No cleanup needed there. How about this one? A little bit, just there. Cool. That one needs a little bit of cleaning. But these are mostly square shaped, so it's nice and easy to just come in here and slice it. Good. Let's get this one out. A little bit of cleanup, nothing big. Alright, all good enough. Let's pop these masters out. All these masters are relatively similar. Like, I think I've got 3 copies of the tall engines, 3 copies of the short engines. This is the only, well, these two are really the only ones that I don't have multiple masters of, so I couldn't cast more than one at a time. So now I'm just going to come in here and try and clean this up just a touch. It's actually slightly harder than you think, because they're really wispy edges. This might fall under the heading of not worth it, but we'll give it a try. Cool. Cool. Right. The only thing I wish I had down here is a proper air compressor. Yeah, willing to call that good enough. Let's some of this cleaned up. Like I have some residue in here, that's okay. Oh, I got little bits in there to get rid of. Okay. Good enough. Also, really fun thing about this one, it didn't work with this one because of the way I had to do it, but it acts as a suction cup. I'm very easily amused. It's just the way the meniscus builds when you pour something like that. So yeah. I'm going to step outside for a smoke break. I will be right back, and then I will pour a couple of these after I clean up these edges. Still got some clay in there. Ugh. I always trim up the corners or edges of the molds because it's just cleaner that way. There we go. All right, smoke break. Be right back. Coffee.
Sorry, just took a second to check my framing, make sure I could actually see everything. Okay. Put my coffee back. Get my phone out of my back pocket so that I sit down, I don't crush it. Not that that's a huge concern. Let's put these away here. Actually, you know what? Before I start organizing those, I'm going to hit these with a mold release, so bear with me just a second. Where is my mold release? There you are. Found it. Let's see how much. Not a lot. Okay. Let's just do one. Okay. Got mold release in there. By the way, I use this for my mold release because it's universal. Works really well. Let's see here. Oh, hey, thanks for the follow, Barry. Sorry, the Twitch dashboard is all sorts of disorganized for me right now. And as I said, I'm kind of on my laptop, so that's not exactly the fastest thing ever. Alright, that's trash. That's good. That's trash. This can be reconstituted. Put that back in the clay box. And by box, I mean bin. Oh, missed a piece. Note to self, before I go to bed tonight, let me get the rest of this in there too. Before I go to bed tonight, spritz some water in this because it's starting to dry out slightly. I don't know what kind of clay this is, except basically wed clay. W-E-D, wed. I think it's a non-sulfuric water-based clay, so it does dry out. But it can easily be reconstituted by throwing a little bit of water at it. Light spritz, mind you. Ooh. That is a blade. We don't want to randomly touch that. And that's a needle. Let's not casually pick that up. I don't know what that screw is for, but it looks important. I think it's for a Nerf gun. I'll fix that in a second. Okay. Tomorrow, I take out the trash. So yeah, square cookie cutters, really handy. I've got a set in varying sizes. But these are really useful for making impromptu mold cases, jackets, whatever they're called. I'm missing one. There you are. I've got a variety of them in different shapes, so square is really good. I've got an oval, a circle set, and I think a cartouche set. And like a... I don't know. I don't know how to describe this. It doesn't matter. Anyways. Oh, missed a piece. So I think the double-sided tape was a success. I think I'll be doing that from now on. The double-sided tape plus the styrene stuff. And someone texted me. Let's see what they want. Cool. And let's put these away before I lose them. That's trash. That's trash. Okay. Oh, sorry for bumping the mic. That goes there. These can live here. This can go there. That goes there. Why not? Go. Now, these are safe and secure. And I just leave the masters over there because this is mixing thing for the silicone. No real salvageable parts. Sometimes if there's a lip, like a thick bit at the bottom, those are really handy for, I keep them around for, like, loose pallets or whatever. They're really handy, but no real salvageable piece from that. That's okay. Yeah, that should go somewhere where it actually belongs. Let's get out this, because I'll need that in a second. And I will grab the smooth cast. And it sounds like I have a little bit less of this than this. Okay, so this is Smooth Cast 300. It's a urethane-based resin. Quick curing, very quick curing. Sorry, another text. Okay. And yeah. So let's find out how much I have here. So one of the tricks that I do is I always backlight the cup that I'm pouring into so I can see the lines through the paper of the cup. And I will pour out, let's say, 2 tablespoons. Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to be enough. So let's do, or that was 2 teaspoons. Let's do 4 teaspoons. Cool. Still a little bit left in there. Let me get this ready. Stirring stick. So when I pour this together, I've got, how long do I have? Not long. Pot life, 3 minutes. So not a lot of time. This I hate.
The A part always gets stuck. There we go. Okay. So I've got 3 minutes to stir this up and get it poured. So I'm going to have to hurry just a little bit here. Oh. Foreign contaminant. And it actually looks like I'm hitting the dregs of it. It's a little milkier and cloudier than it usually is. This will cure white, but for now it is slightly translucent. So I'm going to just set that there. You know what, let me get a little bit more stirring in, just a little bit. Always stir across the sides of your container too, just to get the dregs of it. It's a little bit less of an issue with something with this low of viscosity. I'm seeing a bunch of bubbles in here, which is not necessarily like a deal breaker. Always also kind of figure that the first pour that you ever do, this is an uneven surface, so I'm gonna prop this up just a little bit. Always figure that your first pour into a freshly made mold is gonna be rubbish. It's always kind of a safe assumption, especially when you have a cat hair. There we go. Cat hair removed. Like there's just kind of foreign debris. I can already feel it starting to heat up, which means it's starting to react. It's an exothermic reaction. Sorry for the sound of my furnace. It's an exothermic reaction, which means that it kicks with heat. Yep, there he goes. That one's gonna suck. It kicks with heat, and it gets hotter. In fact, you can already see it's darkening. It's solidifying, and I'm not sure how to portray it on stream, but the transparent bits are now solidifying and getting white. If I were to poke this, it is now a jelly consistency. It doesn't take long at all for it to start to kick. I kind of anticipated that being a thing. But I don't expect this to be a very good pour. The reason why is because there's still kind of gunk all along the mold. Doing a crap pour, like a crap first pour, is kind of a good way to get some of the debris out. It also lets you see if there are any issues with your mold, like any voids that shouldn't be there. This one is just going to be terrible. So now we wait. Waiting is the fun part. I always keep this on hand too, so I can continue to test it. This will, hopefully, if I got the proportions right, which fairly certain I did, this will be rock hard in a little while. This will finish curing before the rest of this, though. The reason for that is because, like I said, it's exothermic, which means it kicks off from heat. So the hotter it gets, the quicker it cures. The other property of that is if you have a large piece the exothermic reaction kind of chain reacts faster because there's more material for it to heat up faster. Therefore, it cures faster. Therefore, it heats up faster. Therefore, it cures faster. So this will be cured well before this stuff. In fact, I still see some transparent pieces here, which means that's not even close to ready. I accidentally spilled a little bit on the side here, and that's still relatively jelly. So, nowhere near ready yet. Really, I tend to actually give it a good amount of time before I pull it. Like, a good amount of time. Well, this is warm now. It's very warm to touch the bottom of the cup where the resin is. I actually have been known to just let this sit for an hour, even though that's not strictly necessary. Now we need to worry about leveling now. But like, these little small doodads will take a good amount longer for it to cure. So yeah. But yeah, I'll leave it for like an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2. Transparent epoxy-based resins tend to need 24 hours, unless you're doing a big hunkin' thing. I've had some that cure in 6 hours. I've had pieces that take 3 or 4 days. But this urethane stuff cures rather quick. The onyx that I have, which cures black, both its pot life is shorter and its cure time is shorter, even faster than this, to the point where I'm not actually a fan of this particular type of onyx. I would prefer getting my hands on a variety of onyx that was a little bit slower. But I'll be ordering that on Amazon in the vague future. So yeah, we're gonna just set that off to the side, and let's see. So these ceruleans, yeah, these ceruleans that I bought are, I actually have some that are finished. These are for my CSA fleet for Star Wars Armada. I've got a bunch here. And I've talked about these on the stream and in the forums for Armada pretty extensively. But for those who are uninitiated, I play Star Wars Armada, which is a Star Wars, obviously, tabletop starship combat game, a war game. Kind of like Battlefleet Gothic, but for Star Wars. And so FFG, Fantasy Flight Games, the guys who made the game, kind of got the license during the transition between old canon Legends and new canon. So they have a lot of Legends content, such as the Assault Frigate, which has not been recanonized yet. But it seems like until very recently, or at least I should say recently, they started to put more of an emphasis on canon stuff, which, you know, that's what Disney says, that's what they do. So in Legends, there is a minor faction called the Corporate Sector Authority, which has not been recanonized, to my knowledge. And I've always enjoyed the fact that there is something other than Rebels and Imperials about them. Check this. That's getting there. It's still a little warm, but it's getting there. This is still fairly gelled. So we're going to continue to let that sit. So, yeah, CSA. So I am a fan of the minor factions because it's something other than Rebels Imperials. But Fantasy Flight Games will never make a version these old canon factions ever. They just won't. Because they don't exist anymore. And even if they did, not really where the game is going to go. From a purely development standpoint, totally understandable. So what I've done is I've gotten a few ships that are CSA specific, like the Marauder Corvette by Mel's Miniatures, over on Shapeways. I've got a handful of those upstairs. And I got to digging on what other vessels the CSA uses, one of which is something called the Invincible class Dreadnought or something. It's, they also use Victory class Star Destroyers, surplus ones from the Empire. So the Invincible ones are actually kind of a cylindrical design. And then I happened across the Ceruleans from Firestorm Armada. And I was like, you know what? These look similar enough that I can run with it. So I got my hands on a bunch of Ceruleans a couple years ago, just as the game started to go out of print, I think. And I was like, yeah, this is a good, conversion fleet. And then Firestorm Armada stopped being printed. So I was like, crap. I've got maybe a dozen different ships for the CSA now. About 4 or 5 different classes. And I was like, this is good. I appreciate that I have this wide variety of stuff that I can throw in here, but I need more. So I bought a bunch off of a Facebook group that I got my hands on a bunch. So I've already gone through these and gotten them unboxed, but I need to organize them. This one's empty. Also, these boxes, really handy for extra storage, so I'm going to hold on to those. Because why not? So, I can just hang it there. Let's take a look here. So I was supposed to get 8, 2 packs of 4, but unfortunately one of them was short a cruiser hull, so I've only got 7. I don't know where that actually puts my cruiser count at. Now these are pre-assembled, these need to be assembled. What you've got is the final result here, but there's 7 cruisers. 7 more cruisers. I think I've got 4 of these already, so that brings me up to math. 11. Pretty good. What else? Let's get these guys out. These are actually another faction from Firestorm Armada called the Tarakians. I got these because some of the parts are interesting, but their Dreadnought is an interesting shape that I really like. So I got that because I actually already have one of these all painted up, and included in the lot that I got off the Facebook guy was another one of these. And I'm like, you know what? I could live with having 2. Why not? So I do. Got some smaller craft pieces. Might use it for something. Might just cast them and play around with them. I'm not really sure yet. Just little things. So they actually look like nice Corvettes. So they'll probably get turned into the CSA equivalent of the CR-90, the blockade runner. I got something slightly bigger. I'm not as much a fan of these. They're kind of, I don't know, I don't like the designs of these as much. So these might just be sitting in reserve for something, another day, a rainy day type deal. So these go back in the box. Let's see what else I got here. Back in the box, back in the box. You know, if I were smart, what I would do is put these all back in the box like I should. Oh no, I got resin all over my tweezers. There we go. That's from when I had to dig out the cat hair, I'm sure. Check on my... Oh, that's a good pop sound. Are we there yet? Not quite. Cool. Another way you can check to see if the resin is cured is to actually pop out from the box and it's still slightly shiny and wet, which means it probably isn't quite fully cured yet, but it's getting there. Let's see, I've got a couple gunships. I got a whole bunch of stuff here that I need to go through and properly organize, and I shall. Alright, now like I said, this is not going to be an amazing pour. You know what, that actually came out better than I thought it would. That's a win. This one's kind of meh. Wasn't expecting a lot. This one's not bad. The tips of the cannons need a little work. But you know, good enough. These actually came out pretty good. A little more worried about these. Not bad. Couple bubbles here and there, but honestly hardly noticeable. What I'm more mindful of, another bubble, that's okay. Couple bubbles. The bubbles are actually okay. I mean, they're not great, and obviously you want to have a casting that doesn't have any bubbles in it, of course. But since this is the first pour, what I'm actually looking for is for the opposite of bubbles. A couple bubbles in there too. Which is kind of a bulb in the casting. If you see a bubble, like a blister, I guess is how you could describe it. If you see a blister in the casting, that means that there's a void in the mold, which couple bubbles again, no bulbs, no blisters. If you find a blister in one of the pieces that you cast, that means that your mold had a bubble in it when when it was done curing, which means that you will always have that blister there no matter what you do, unless you find a way to fill in on the mold, but that's painful at best. So yeah, a bunch of bubbles here and there, but unfortunately What you really should have, what I really should have done is, they always say stir well before using. It says so right on the lid. So I tend to shake it. Unfortunately, this creates a whole bunch of bubbles in it. So what you should do is shake it and let it sit for 20 minutes, and then pour it, mix it, and you'll have fewer bubbles. The mold release that I sprayed in here also helps with that. It's not foolproof, but it helps with that. I've also seen people use, what's the term? Talcum powder or baby powder. That helps with bubbles because it plays with the surface tension of the resin that you're using. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with that. It also changes the surface finish, makes it rougher, not as shiny. So if you're worried about the surface finish of the thing that you've made, you will not have a good experience there. So yeah, I'll come in here and try and get this one piece out. There we go. Sorry, there's a bit of debris in one of the molds. Sometimes you can cut in there with a needle or something and try and dig that out. Or you can leave it in there. And I'll come out with the next casting. But usually I have an air compressor that I would spray in there. But yeah, as you can see, this thing's kind of a mess. If I had my druthers, what I would do is wash this out. I would actually wash it out with rubbing alcohol, and then let it dry completely, really completely, like rubbing alcohol, and then let it dry out for like a day. Silicone has a tendency to swell with rubbing alcohol, so you want it to get all this evaporated off of that, and then it'll come back down. Or I could soak it in water, like a soapy water, for a little while, and that'll clean it out too. The only thing with that is that, again, you need to let it dry. Again, probably 24 hours before you try casting in it, particularly with urethane resins. It does not like moisture when it's curing. I've actually had pours that go bad because it was too humid out. So urethanes and epoxies, more urethanes than epoxies, but both of them nonetheless are pretty moisture sensitive. So never cast into a wet mold. It just will not cure, and you're gonna have to dig out uncured resin from your mold, which could potentially damage it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just going over some of these pieces, particularly the ones like these engines, and trimming off some of the stuff. The other thing that the styrene layer has afforded me is I've got some wiggle room. So what I'll do is I'll take this over to the belt sander and just sand it down until it's roughly flush. It's a good way to work on it without like ruining any detail. So yeah, that one's got a nice bulb there. Again, it's that surface tension issue. So yeah, this one is I'm not a fan of how this one came out, but you know what, I wasn't expecting a lot. This was also the one that I poured last, and the resin had already started to gel, so I was not going to get a good shape out of that one. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this one. Really pleased with this one, really. Couple bubbles here and there, but honestly, you can barely tell. You have to look for them. and it's good enough that I can sand the back just a touch and make use of it. I feel like this would be really good as a greeble on the top of a miniature building. It's got that slightly industrial vibe to it, and I mean a lot of these do. But yeah, this one also is going to be fun because this is actually the bridge to a Terrakian ship. Just gonna clean that up just a touch. And so this would fit here, like that. But I'm going to be using it on one of my scratch builds that I'm working on, which is that Hapes battleship. In fact, let me dig that out because it's worth showing off. There we go. So, yeah, this is my Hapes battleship. You can see I've already used some pieces from these Firestorm Armada pieces that I had previously cast. But yeah, the bridge is going to sit right there. Centerlined, of course. But that's actually one of the main reasons why I got the Terrakian fleet, so that I would have this. The back needs an engine or 3. So I will probably... Nah. I mean, I would normally be like, well, maybe, but like... Nah, and that's just way too big. However... if I get out one of the... That might do. I have to build up on the sides just a little bit, but honestly that's a good size. Maybe if I move it up and put something underneath. I don't know. Or I could just center line it and leave it be. Or I could center line it and put some styrene panels on either side just to give it some variety. But yeah. The only other thing that I really want off this thing, or for this thing I should say, is some turrets. So I will be reaching out to Mel to see if he has any turret models that he wouldn't mind letting me make use of. Yeah, that'll be good. Anyways, let's set this aside. Coffee. And let me finish cleaning up a little bit here. And I know it's kind of boring for you guys to listen to me cleaning, but it really helps to just help me keep organized. Yeah, I'll just throw the mold in my mold drawer. I got a whole drawer here of molds that I've got. I need to take out trash in the near future. This is pointless to me, so I will throw that in there. Alright, let's keep... Now let me throw these in the bits box. One of the compartments of my bits container is for stuff that I have cast and poured. So I'll throw it all in there for now. I need to get more of those or come up with a better system all around. What I really want is to build that Sortimo, that cheapo Sortimo the Pseudo Sortimo system. So I'm going to be investing in some Stanley containers in the near future. I just haven't gotten around to it. And whilst I did get a raise at work, I still have some stuff to sort out with that. With finances, so I don't have the money to do it yet. Some Corvettes. I think I had a set of these already. Big Cerulean battleship. Dreadnought, whatever. Big one. Obviously needs some parts. And that's what that... The failed cast is actually the piece that goes over that, so... Big. A biggin. Alright, what else we got here? I'm just gonna get out all the boxes. So, we'll just go through all of these. Yes, me opening up toys. Totally an entertaining stream. Let's see what I got here. Oh, I thought these were the same as these. They're not. They're actually slightly different. I've got a bunch of these guys. Upstairs in my collection. These guys are new. Those three are new. Looks like 5 of these Corvettes. I'm gonna have to sand that down. That's okay. I got some kind of, I guess you'd call them light cruisers. Those are nice. I've got 3 of these already, I think. I think I've got 5 of these, and these are these. So I've got 5 of these now. I had 3. What it was is this particular box, this Bastion Fleet, I had bought one of these, and they only included one of these guys, so I complained and they actually sent me 2, like enough parts to build one and an extra one. So parts, game specific stuff. All right. Oh, right, I moved them over here. It's another one. These, I think, are... Yep. Not sure if I'm going to use these. The kind of underbite is not something I'm too sure about. I mean, it's kind of neat. But I don't know. Haven't decided yet. But I've got them. So it's one of those things where I had to buy the whole lot. I got a space station, which is where that top part came from. I'm not going to use the space station for anything. In fact, I'm just going to leave it in the box because I don't care about it. What do we got here? A destroyer group. And these are fully assembled. I can just start priming these guys. About the same size as these guys. That's cool. It's kind of another alternative. So yeah, there's that. Oh, ran out of box
boxes. Let's go get more. All right. So yeah. Okay. Got a couple different things going on here. Got three of these. These little things are cute. Little tiny things. This might end up serving as my kind of CSA flotilla group. So I've got 6 of them here, which is enough for 3 flotillas. And they're about the right size. A little larger than, like the GR-75 or the Gazanti, but I think it'll work. So we're just going to throw these here. So these guys, these light cruisers, what's fascinating about these is I've actually got kind of a multiple choice. I can either fit the 2 of this together and I'll get one configuration like this, or I can use this other bottom part. Let me just trim this up real quick. Or I can use this bottom part here, this other bottom part, and I get a different configuration. So I kind of have to choose whether or not I want to go with one or the other. And I'm actually thinking this one. I like the look of it more. It's a little more in line with the rest of them. These catamaran pontoon style things are cool, but I'm not a huge fan of this long gun underneath, and I'd rather just... This feels a little bit more uniform with everything else. So I think I'm going to go with those. So I've got 3 of those. So I potentially I'll glue them up tonight. I don't know. By the way, the heavy cruisers are the same way. Let me get stuff on the bits and I'll show you. So there are 2 options when it comes to, actually kind of 4 options if you think about it. I've got an option where I can use this double wide underside here, or I can use the single wide one. And I can choose whether or not I want to use the tall engines or the short engines. I've used the tall engines and the single beam for the rest of them, and honestly, I don't want to confligate things, so I'm probably going to keep it consistent and just use these universally and call it good. So, that's that. A stupid place for a bunch of PVC pipe fittings to sit there. Moving on. So, these are gunships. Ships kind of come in 3 different parts here. I'm just going to get out enough. Oh, no, I'm just going to take them out because I'm throwing all the boxes over there. Alright, I'm starting to get crowded here. Okay. Gunships. Gunships have kind of a weird design to them. Kind of like a trimaran hull. So in a perfect world, what you would do, here's my 3rd one, is you would kind of put these together like this. Oh, obviously you'd be gluing them so they don't fall apart in your hands. Let me just get the box. Where's the box? I just had the box. There they are.
So yeah, like that. It's kind of trimaran hull. But, and you would put engines above and below. But I kind of noticed that these look kind of neat on their own. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of let these just be their own thing. So I'll kind of have a fleet of these little mini cruisers, these light cruisers. They're not quite as detailed as these Corvettes per se, but you know what? They're enough that it could look good. I'm gonna put a piece here that will. Actually, I might have one sitting here. Yes, I do. So I've got this a bit from another race faction from this game. It's kind of got this keel thing going on, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this here. And, yeah. And then the keyhole for the stand will go there. So I'm going to have to shim this up slightly and shape it. But yeah, I feel like that'll be a good standalone ship. And for these guys, I can do basically the same thing. I can either leave these bare, or I can find something else to kind of kit bash them on. That doesn't really work. I'll find something. But instead of fully assembling these guys, because I honestly think that looks a little silly. Instead of full-on assembling these guys, I'm going to split them apart and repurpose them. Why, hello! I don't even know if you're still watching because it says you're only 0 viewers. But I just noticed that you said hi. And my eyes are not what they used to be, and my laptop is actually a significant distance away from me. So, Quinyan, you're from the tabletop Discord. How you doing? I'm just kind of currently going through my spoils here. Oh, right. That's where I put that. And another one of these. I have 2 boxes worth. So I'm going to dig them up and splay them out here. So yeah, whole bunch of shit. And so this box is slightly different because it's actually from the first edition of the game. So the miniatures are slightly older, not as pretty. In fact, they have nice. This thing's great. I got it at, I don't even know where I got it. I think I inherited it from someone. But these guys are from the first edition, like I said, to the point where they actually have pewter parts for the tail ends, and I'm going to be casting those pewter parts in resin to use as other parts. So yeah, I got a lot of priming to do. Like a lot. Like a lot. Lots and lots of painting. It'll be fun! Spoiler alert, it won't be fun. So yeah. But they'll all share this paint scheme with the rest of these. And at some point, what I'll do is I'll actually splay out my entire CSA fleet when it's all said and done and see how it goes. I actually agree wholeheartedly, to the point where I've actually considered basically molding up silicone handles for my thinner ones, because I've got a bunch of these crap ones. I was thinking about building up silicone grips for those X-Acto knife holders, but I have enough stuff to do as I gaze upon. I'm not intimidated. You're intimidated. I'm intimidated. Exactly. If I could do anything close to approaching a satisfactory impression of Morgan Freeman, that is exactly what I would have done. But I won't insult the man by trying to imitate him with my poor voice acting skills. And yeah, these are, by the way, the DefSats, the defense satellites, and this is the ring for the space station. It's honestly kind of naff. I'm not going to be using it. But the space station had that really cool piece in the middle that was awesome. So it was worth getting. Yeah. So coffee. There you are. I've gone and made a mess on my floor. In fact, I'm gonna be that guy and move the camera just to be like, I've made a mess unboxing all the things. So hopefully everything's still in frame here. So I'm gonna be taking a few minutes to he said to talk like him. I am not a trained voice actor by any stretch of anyone's imagination. Like Salvador Dali's imagination could not stretch that far to consider me a voice actor. My partner is trained as one, but I'm not. I think the thing about Morgan Freeman's voice is not necessarily even the slowing down and enunciating everything. He's got a little bit of a twang that I can't really emulate, and as I understand it, he also has a slightly deeper register than I'm really capable of hitting. My voice does not do the vocal fry all that well. It's really uncomfortable for me. So I can't hit that register. So I don't even try. That vocal fry. You see, I can't even do it. It's just embarrassing. I hear my cat. My cat's not allowed in the basement, so he cries for me upstairs sometimes. So I'm gonna take a minute to clean up these boxes here and find out how I want to store all these miniatures. And I'm going to preemptively apologize for the rustling and crashing and banging that you're going to be hearing. But you know what? At least there's a good quality cardboard boxes that I will be using in the future. And yeah. So let's see what else.
put that back. I need to put away that mold before it gets dirty. Gets too dirty, at least. I've got a whole drawer of molds here that I need to go through and organize and clean up. Interesting. I never would have. Oh, sorry for bumping the camera. I never would have thought that a. All right, so I'm not familiar with Lenny James. I probably should be. In fact, if my partner hears me saying I'm not familiar with this Brit actor, they will probably be at least slightly disappointed in me because my partner's British, English specifically. So I get kind of the some introductions to British actors and British media that way. But though actually they did introduce me to my second favorite comedian, who is Dara O'Brien. Love Dara O'Brien. Never have I ever seen a wittier person. I do not see. I have not seen Walking Dead nor Jericho, so I'm afraid that reference is lost on me. But I will look them up in a moment when I dig out my cell phone. But there's this stuff. Oh, that's probably from the Trojan box. So, I lost my train of thought. So delicate, my train of thought. Damn. You'd think I'd have like ADHD or something. Oh, maybe I do. Undiagnosed for my entire life, but honestly, it would make a certain amount of sense. Anyways. So yeah, I get introduced to some English media, British media, sometimes. But like, there's this quintessential thing in an interview, I think, where Hugh Laurie is talking about his casting call for the show House, where the casting director had no idea that he wasn't American, and it's Hugh Laurie, for crying out loud. And it was just, it's amazing how many actors are like that, where they're definitely not American, but they fake it well enough. Obviously, that's because of the inundation of American media in non-American areas, because, yay, cultural influencing. But it's also kind of a thing with us where we kind of assume that we're the only country on the earth. Like, we intellectually, most of us know that we're not, but like, emotionally speaking, it doesn't really occur to us that there are other countries out there, you selfish sods. So it doesn't really occur to us that an actor we see is anything but American. It's actually one of my big problems with American media these days. Really? Like the really was it the surprise that your mention of the casting call stuff from the Star Trek series. I'm surprised because I'm a big Trekkie and I actually don't know anything about what you're talking about. Is this the recent series, or like Disco, or the old ones? So I'm still trying to get myself sorted. So
Please, again, pardon the noise and distracted Rob, that is. You know what? I can use a clamp for that. Let me get out one of these clamps. Oh, yeah. Martok. J.B. Heltzer, or Heltzger. I can't remember how his last name is both spelled, pronounced, or if I have it right. But he was actually in the Axanar project. You know, that 20-minute mockumentary, like in-universe documentary about the Axanar War. He was in that too. He played an admiral that they, quote, interviewed. If you haven't seen that, by the way, Axanar, it's actually really cool. It's a shame the whole thing won't get produced, but it was a cute little thing. Wow, way to get typecast. And he is, aside from Worf, ostensibly like the most pivotal Klingon character. Oh, sweet irony. How palpable. That's good. I like that. It's almost like if you don't actually restrict what you do, they do better. Oh, man. Alright, I need to fetch a trash bag. Oh, oh, nice. I like the table flip. You know, I feel like if someone was willing to be committed to the idea enough to flip my table and throw a chair, one, I recommend therapy, and two, they're playing a Klingon? Yeah, okay, you know? By dint of the sheer audience, you earned to go. Oh, I got so much crap. Okay. Of course I pick up the one cup that had uncured resin in it. Gross. There's no graceful way to do this, is there? Nope. No, there isn't. Okay, that's for that. Good. Oh, Jeffrey Combs is actually one of my favorite actors. Plays my favorite character from Enterprise. Shran. He was fantastic. Shran was the reason why I kept watching Enterprise. Oh, so good. Like, he was good as Wayun, for sure, but Shran. I like the Andorians. Yeah. Okay, everything's fine. Nothing is broken. Just gravity.
What I've actually been really tempted to do is do a recut of Enterprise, because there's a lot about Enterprise that frankly just sucks. But what I've always wanted to do was kind of take the first season and the fourth season and a couple episodes in between and cut them into a kind of a mini series. I always feel like that would be a really cool thing to do. Most of them revolving around the founding of the Federation and the Vulcan and the Andorian whatnot. He was also in an episode of Babylon 5, and he was really enjoyable as that one character as well, too. I don't know if you've seen Babylon 5. Highly recommend it if you haven't. But he played a telepath, and telepaths in Babylon 5 are always kind of portrayed as this untrustworthy, creepy thing. Mostly because of the organization that regulates and controls telepaths, the Psi Corps. They're kind of like the SS of the evil Earth Alliance thing. It's more nuanced and subtle than, well, in some ways, than I'm describing. But they actually did a really good job of having him play a telepath that you're kind of uneasy about at first, but becomes more and more relatable as the episode goes on, especially when that conflict is counterpointed to a character that is already lovable by establishment of the rest of the show so far. So that foil interaction there, where it's, she hates Psi Corps, but it turns out this one guy's actually not so bad. But she hates Psi Corps and hates everything in it. Yeah. It's a good episode. It's a good series. I actually just rewatched B5 not too long ago, except for the 5th season. And, it's hokey, but it's still very topical and very relevant. As much as it was then as it is now. And it's just kind of... It's a good series. It's a good series to watch. A couple things don't hold up, and I don't even necessarily mean the special effects, because they frankly, they suck. Good for their time, but they suck now. That doesn't hold up. But, some of the heroic white dude syndrome of the main character, I can kind of be like, alright, come on. Enough. I mean, it's always been ubiquitous, but it was... I guess back then, its ubiquity wasn't as noticed, because it was kind of normalized at that point, and now we're challenging that, which is good. We should be challenging the heterosis white guy savior syndrome in media. But when viewing that in today's context, it's kind of Farscape is another one that is good. You're right. I can't remember what season 7 is. Series that go on beyond about 4 or 5 seasons kind of get blurry towards the end for me. I couldn't tell you, which season some stuff happens, but yes, absolutely. Star Trek Discovery did a really good job of changing that, and I'm actually a huge fan of what they're doing with that. I enjoy that show. And I'm glad they are. And I look forward to seeing more of that. But in a rewatch of Babylon 5, the contrast of what the demand in media then versus what the
demand and expectation media now, as far as, you know, that kind of thing, is black and white. No pun intended. Yes. And yeah, you're absolutely right. At the time, that is who would watch it, and there's something to be said for catering to the demographic that you're aiming for. But I think one of the things that they glossed over back then, that they're now, with like Discovery, are now realizing, is that maybe there's more than hetero cis white dudes, which I'm all for. I've heard good things about Dark Matter. I haven't sat down and watched it. I don't have a whole lot of time to watch shows anymore. Yay, 5.5 hours every day commuting sucks. Which I've gone on about, but haven't heard about Killjoys. Orphan Black was another one that had a strong female leads, because it's all the same actress but multiple characters. That was really good. And another show I need to finish watching, even though it's already dead, is Sense8. I need to rewatch the first season and actually watch the second season. That was so good. Ah, so good. Anyways, need to finish cleaning. I might need a second trash bag. That's good leather. I'm not going to throw that out. I agree, Sense8 was a little bizarre, but there was something appealing to me about I feel like the overarching theme of that show is quite obviously about connectivity. You know, being so close to an accidental family that you literally share their minds. And none of them had anything in common except for being in the same cluster. And, you know, no blood relation or nothing like that. And I think especially for, you know, the one trans character there, or the Korean character whose brother betrayed her, it spoke to me a great deal about having a family you're not related to, and the strengths of that, and the support you get from that. So yeah, it was a bizarre storytelling mechanism that was just intriguing, both from a what if standpoint and narratively. Like, it's like playing with how they decided to execute certain shots or certain things. Adam Savage recently went into on a podcast, talked about the narrative tropes of Fleabag, which is not a show that I've seen yet, but he's talked about that, and I get the same kind of vibe about that with Sense8. It was just interesting to see how they executed certain things, and that was cool. But the overarching theme really appealed to me. You know, Firefly is kind of a mixed bag for me. I enjoyed the camaraderie that the crew obviously had. I think Firefly was kind of the resurgence of an ensemble style character set in that kind of setting. And it's actually the same kind of thing with Sense8, where it's an ensemble cast of interplay characters that have a sense of familiarity, not familiarity because they're familiar, but the feeling of family. Also, the Firefly aesthetic is kind of neat. Western in space that's what the original Star Trek was. Wagon train to the stars. So that was cool. I'm kind of okay with the fact that Firefly had one season, and I'm kind of, I feel like, in the minority there. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see, but let's face it, Joss Whedon, without someone to temper him, isn't actually all that good of a showrunner or writer. So I'm kind of okay with where it ended, and it's been a while since I rewatched it, and I don't really have the impulse to. Yeah. I know that's not a popular opinion among geek culture, but there it is. Also, Joss Whedon's a little bit creepy. Joss Whedon, whilst yes, he did very good things for writing and portraying stronger women, there was always something slightly unsettling about the way he did it. They were always like young, cute, attractive, strong women. Like, there was always an edge of his female characters that were not people whom I want to see in the world, but rather female characters that represented whom he would want to sleep with. And that always got me slightly creeped out. I have yet to see Orville either. And that is a good point about, yeah, they're all officers. They all have this. You're right. That difference between the characters, I think, helped with the fact that it's an ensemble cast. This is not to bring it back to Sense8, but again, they're all different. One's an actor. One's a bus driver from Africa. You know, there's that contrast in who the characters are is a big deal. I think that gets kind of grayed out in things like Star Trek for sure. But again, Star Trek isn't about the characters. Star Trek is about the events. It's about the broad strokes of the situation. It's an event-driven show, not a character-driven show. Which is fine, but it just doesn't have the same recipe. Yeah, the companion, you're right. It's an honorable profession, except that the primary character didn't see it as an honorable profession. And in that particular way, I feel like Mal was kind of a stand-in for Joss Whedon being derisive. So, like, if it were an... Like, why even have that judgy McJudginess of Mal towards her unless you wanted to have that conversation? But that conversation didn't need to happen, you know? There's no need to be derisive about it. You know, I'm surprised. I'm glad that a show like Orville is in your face with social issues. Social issues should be in your face. Some people don't get to take a break from social issues. Why the hell should you? Why should you be able to? You being, you know. I don't want to see that, people, you know. But I don't know. Seth MacFarlane has always been kind of a for me. I appreciate that he is willing to tackle social issues, and it seems as though in his more recent work he's gotten a little less what's the word, dickish, which is nice. So, I don't know, maybe I'll give Orville a shot, but time's still at a premium, and I'd rather not take a risk on something that I'm like, eh. I want something safer, I guess. As far as levels of enjoyment go. Let's see, what else? Cardboard box overflowed. All that trash fit into one bag, which I find surprising. School bigot. I have fairly thick skin. Well, depends on your definition. I like people. Let's see. Okay. To borrow a phrase from Terry Pratchett, humor should punch up. It should always punch up. I hate humor that punches down. And that was actually my biggest issue with Family Guy, is that it made fun of people who really didn't deserve to be made fun of. They punched down. So, give me a show that has humor that punches up. I'm good.
Oh look, more trash. Okay. In any event, it is nearly 1 a.m. my time, so I'm going to finish emptying out these boxes and organizing these, and I'm gonna head to bed. So I work in the morning. Yay! Capitalism. I had a bag of bags out before. Did I put them away? I did. My bag of bags. Oh, I'm gonna go get a Ziploc bag. Proper bag for this. Keep it all in this box here. Be right back. Okay. Alright, I think I can follow that. That's a lot of miniatures. God, I need another hobby. Yeah, I need another hobby like I need a hole in the head. God knows I have enough. Let's see, this... No real difference. I guess 50% alcohol really didn't do it. I'd rather not try the 91. Okay. I am now at the point where I feel like I'm spinning my wheels slightly because I just picked up and put down the same thing 3 times. So, I think it's time for me to go to bed. Like I said, 1 a.m. So, I think I'm gonna call it a night. I totally just forgot a bunch of minis. Damn. this somewhere safer. Don't want that to break. And on that note, I'm heading to bed. Right on. Have a good night. And, I'll catch you